Hello, Jan John here. Oscar Wilde had a dry wit or a dry sense of humour. He liked to poke fun at middle-class society or the bourgeoisie. Bourgeoisie, B-O-U-R-G-E-O-I-S-I-E. This is a French word. Oscar Wilde was gay in a time when being gay was certainly not acceptable, so I would guess that he often felt at odds with society, and felt like attacking middle-class values. However, he also obviously had a very sharp sense of humour, which we can see in this quotation. I think he is suggesting that when people get to know each other more, they may discover that what they find is not to their liking, and this may lead to a termination of the relationship. So I think he was advocating short relationships, not daring to risk the longer term and possible disaster. I don't know whether he was referring to gay relationships or all relationships, including those between men and women, which we refer to as heterosexual. If he was referring only to gay relationships, then what he said is supported by many stories I have heard about gay men having short and frequent relationships. So what do you think about the idea of engagement? Do you think this is a good way to begin a long-term relationship? Traditionally, I think the idea of engagement is a kind of rehearsal for marriage. So people may be engaged for 6 months or even 2 years before they finally take the big step and make a longer term commitment in the form of marriage. A rehearsal and also an opportunity to get to know each other better, to confirm or refute your belief in each other and that you can get on together. When a romantic relationship starts, it is usually full of passion, and the two parties may not be thinking that clearly and may not also be observing of each other's weaknesses. So when the first flame of romance has begun to settle down, maybe they will be more clear-minded and really be able to see whether they think they can get on together in a long-term relationship. But how long does it take to really get to know someone to the extent that you feel very confident in a future relationship? For some people this may be only a few weeks, for others it may take years. But of course, while this getting to know each other is going on, the two parties are also changing because they are having new experiences and responding to the environment around them as well as their partners. So the idea that you get to know someone better with time may actually be quite false. This has the faulty assumption that people remain fairly static in their personality and character. It would be certainly foolhardy to jump into any relationship too quickly before you have at least assured yourself that you have some basic ability to communicate and get on with the other person. Nowadays, of course, many people do not get married, although they may enter a long-term relationship, so the idea of engagement never arises. Engagement and marriage are, of course, a kind of legal arrangement, and not directly to do with whether the couple are compatible. My personal opinion is that people probably can get on with almost anybody because they tend to adjust to each other. You will change your partner and your partner will change you through a possibly painful process of arguments, conflict and disagreement, which we see as a normal part of relationship. So maybe we should not worry too much about the idea of a perfect match. Maybe that is just the stuff of fiction and not what we should be aiming for. So let's do an essay question. Nowadays, many people, before they get married, will become engaged for a period of time. Do you think this is a useful and positive thing? Introduction first. Marriage is still the most popular way in which men and women will get together in relationship in society, and the ideal for most people is probably still to find a perfect partner who you will spend the rest of your life with. And to do this, people will use various methods to sift through potential mates until they find the right one. Potential mates. Second paragraph. I'm going to support engagement. I think engagement, or at least getting to know each other for a period of time before you make a solid long-term commitment, is quite advisable. At the beginning of a romantic relationship, your head is usually clouded by romantic emotions, and you need time for your more objective thinking processes to analyze your relationship and see clearly the pros and cons. In particular, you need to see if there are any major fault lines in your relationship. Fault lines. For example, I had a friend who 2 years ago met a woman who he told me at the time was going to be the love of his life. At that time, they spent every day together. It seemed to me like they were stuck together with super glue. They never wanted to be out of each other's sight. They had been going on like this for around 6 months when problems began to arise. They began to discover quite significant and important differences in their ways of thinking. For example, the girl wanted to have children, whereas the guy did not. She thought that having children was part of a romantic relationship and could not envisage a future without them. He, on the other hand, was focused more on career and still saw the possibility of a life of adventure with him and his loved one, and he didn't want to be carrying toddlers around the world in a backpack. Toddlers. That was the beginning of their conflict, and from there it just went from bad to worse. They discovered major differences in many important issues, for example politics, religion, and even how to cook an omelette. So pretty soon, as I think you can guess, the relationship disintegrated. And thank God they took the time to get to know each other before plunging into marriage, which would have made things far worse. A third paragraph, I'm going to support no engagement. On the other hand, many people believe that when you meet your perfect match, it's a matter of emotions and not the intellect. Your heart will tell you if this is the right person, and thinking is just going to confuse the issue. So for those people who believe in the power of the heart over the power of the mind, for them engagements are a waste of time. Last paragraph, paragraph 4. In conclusion, I do support engagements, or at least spending some time getting to know each other before making a long-term commitment, as people need to see what is going to come out of the woodwork. That's the end of the essay. Have you had experiences with engagements or getting to know your partner, and has this helped you to develop and improve your relationship? Or was it just wasting time? Did you know from the beginning that things were going to work and it really wasn't necessary to check each other out any further? I think there is a deep philosophical problem here, which is that people as a fixed entity do not really exist, according to Buddhist belief, which I support. We are indeed only a collection of ideas, experiences, and memories, which are constantly in flux and changing. And indeed, we may not be the same person from one day to the next. We appear to the outside world to be the same person because we have certain characteristics, the way we walk, the way we speak, the things we like. But I think these are fairly superficial. The deep parts of ourselves, which are quite intangible, are like a cloud you can see in the sky. You can try to grasp it, but as you grasp it, G-R-A-S-P, it disappears or disperses. So how do you choose a partner, given that we don't exist? I would advise people to be very practical. Look at very objective factors like whether you can communicate in the same language, whether you have a similar education, whether you satisfy your basic desires in a partner, and don't ignore wealth. What financial status do you want to see in your partner? And some simpler things such as what kind of food you like, and whether you have basic characteristics such as tolerance, patience, and self-discipline. So if you are in a long-term relationship now, good luck. And if you are embarking one, again, good luck. Bye-bye.